excitement and motivation that I would like to introduce you to the candidates that are all running for the office of County Commissioner. And we're going to allow each candidate, and we'll just start with Corky and go down the line. And Mr. Dixon, when you're finished, if you'd like to excuse yourself, you may. Don Dixon is the only one who is running unopposed. So the rest are all going for one seat. And with that, we're going to allow our state rep, Corky Combs, to go first. 2 minutes opening statement, Corky.
Thank you, George. How can you follow that, huh? Great job, Thank you all for inviting us here tonight. It is an open democracy meeting, and I'm pleased to be part of it. My name is Corky Combs. I've lived in Butler County all my life. My wife Carol of 40 years and 5 children. It's a great place to live. You know, when we went into endorsement for the Republican Party, we were asked the question, would you raise taxes? Somewhat surprised, I was the only one that said no. I got chastised for that by some people, mostly liberals, but it kind of hit me as, what are you thinking about? We sold a budget in the state of Ohio, $8 billion, without raising taxes. I see no reason that we should raise taxes in Butler County. How do you do that? Many years ago, I established the Economic Development Association of Butler County. It was a public-private organization that did economic development for Butler County. The county put up $60,000. Privates put up over $150,000. We worked together for economic development. That means jobs. That's how you continue prosperity in Butler County. That's how you can provide services without increases in taxes. That's what you got to work towards. Jobs. I've done it. I've done it to the state. I've done it to the county. And I will do it again. We will put people back to work with the knowledge that I have and with the abilities to work between the state and the county. We'll put it together and we'll make this county very, very prosperous. Thank you all.
Next, TC Rogers. TC?
I thank the Westchester Tea Party, and I will welcome all of you to the Rogers neighborhood. I live a mile from here. I'm here for the same reason you are. As a resident of Butler County, I have the interest in the direction of our future and a justified concern of how the commissioners have handled our tax dollars. I believe the discussion about value is appropriate. The value of your home, the value of your job, and what it takes to keep it, the value of your child's education. These are the questions on people's minds tonight. And on March 6th, you will decide the value of a long-term political career versus a new era of leadership with a higher level of management skills. Many years in office should produce a program or accomplishment an individual politician is known for. Are you thinking of one now? An office holder has a hard time with credibility saying what they're going to do if they haven't done that in the many years before. And I also believe that we should evaluate the term responsibility. I don't think you can take credit for jobs that are still in the negotiation stage if you can't take credit for the jobs that actually left the county. But enough about them, let's talk about me. I believe I'm the most qualified person to become a commissioner in many years when it comes to level of education, experience in business turnaround situations, vast personal knowledge and relationships with all communities throughout the county, and a proven track record of accomplishments, turning personnel and assets into a higher value than they were before we started. We truly have a wonderful home in Butler County, rich in the history of coated paper, safes, and machine tools. We still produce for the world stainless steel, life-saving drugs, armored vehicles, beer, and parts for jets and engines. My promise to you is to expand the talents of our local workforce to uplift our own economy, because it's not Washington or Columbus that will turn things around. It starts right here with the people of this county. Thank you, and God bless Butler County.
Butler County Commissioner Chuck Berman. Chuck?
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity and the invitation to be here tonight. Butler County is a vibrant, progressive, and safe county in which to live. We have realized much in the way of economic development and have been known as the job creation capital of Ohio until the recession hit. We have been negatively affected by the recession like everyone globally. The state has also taken millions of dollars by cutting our local government fund. We have made the necessary cuts and layoffs to balance the budget. We have done this and still maintain one of the lowest sales tax rates in the state and the highest bond rating in Butler County's history. I was honored by the Butler County Chiefs of Police Association for my leadership in making the countywide emergency radio system a reality. Any police, fire, or life squad member can communicate with any other safety officer anywhere in the county with the flip of a switch, if they only had that in New York when they had the 911. I was instrumental in the development of the Union Center Interchange, Liberty Way Interchange, 747 and Bypass 4 widening, the regional highway, the massive improvements to the Butler County Regional Airport, and I stood up to fight corruption and greed. I called the FBI to investigate the Dyna scandal. This investigation led to the conviction of 8 individuals for numerous felony charges. Many were also ordered to pay millions in restitution, and some have been sentenced to years in federal penal institutions. I have been and will continue to be committed to doing the right thing for the betterment and safety of the citizens of Butler County. Thank you.
Next from Liberty Township, Jody Milkman.
Hello. I gather that some of you have read your program and found out that I'm a Democratic candidate for Butler County Commissioner. I'm not here as a Democrat. I'm here as one of your neighbors. I'm here as a long-term resident. And as a matter of fact, this room is very, very, very familiar to me. As a matter of fact, in the early 80s, I played Mrs. Soames in Our Town and sang off-key right down there. Thank you very, very much for inviting me. And I understand that the primary purpose for most of you to be here is to actually decide which of the other candidates that you will be supporting. However, I would like to introduce myself and give you an opportunity to get to know me, because I understand that you know most of them quite well. It was very exciting when George called me and invited me, and I think he was a little surprised that I was pleased to come. Very much so, because I love to discuss policy. I'm keenly interested in it. I was a reporter in northwestern Ohio who covered the Seneca County Commissioners. I have lived in both Liberty Townships in the state of Ohio, one in Hancock County, one here. Anyone who knows me as a neighbor knows that I'm a person who will mow your lawn. And so, although I'm a Democrat, I'm very, very trustworthy and reliable, and I love talking about these things. Now, I graduated, as I mentioned, from Lakota High School near the top of my class. I attended the University of Cincinnati, where I graduated magna cum laude, went on to become a reporter. And since then, I have raised my children here and spent 10 years as a stay-at-home mom doing contract work, part as a biz consultant, doing strategy and team leadership. And it is that I come to speak to you about. What does success look like in a commissioner? Does it look like us owing $28,000 per 1,000 residents? I ask you that when peer counties actually owe $86. So I look forward to getting to know you over the next several months, and I thank you very much for having me.
Next, we have Daryl Oldhouse representing the Libertarian Party.
Hello, I'm Daryl Oldhouse. I remember a long time ago I was a Republican, and John Boehner used to have these signs that say Boehner, that nobody had ever said his name correctly, so I'm sort of the same way. My name is Daryl Oldhouse. It's a fine German name, and I'm very proud of it. I'm a lifelong resident of Butler County also. I grew up in Hamilton. I am a nurse. I have an associate degree in nursing. I've been working at Fort Hamilton Hospital for the last 10 years as a charge nurse and a part-time supervisor. Why am I running? I just have a tremendous concern for the country and the county, where we're going in our history. My grandmother always said, don't just sit on the sidelines and complain, do something. So this is my opportunity to get involved and do something. I have no illusions about my inexperience in county politics, but I look at that as an advantage in a lot of ways because I can think outside the box. I do that all the time as a nurse. Why am I a libertarian? Like I said, I used to be a strong Republican until I realized that the Republicans weren't really walking the walk. They were talking about limited government, but I kept seeing government getting huge. And I found the Libertarian Party, and surprisingly, they are about limited government, free markets, and personal responsibility. Very similar to what the Tea Party is about. I attended one of the first Tea Party gatherings in Cincinnati, and I was really surprised at the protest was peaceful. When everybody was gone, there was no litter around. I was shocked. I was impressed. I am equally impressed with the number of people that are here. It just gives me great encouragement for this country, and I just want to do a good job for y'all. Thank you.
And last, my good friend, Commissioner Don Dixon, and as I mentioned, Don is running unopposed. For those of you that are going to handicap the race, put your money on Don, okay?
Thanks, George. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for inviting me. I feel it's a great honor to be here tonight just to say hi to everyone and answer any questions you may have later on. I don't want to take any time for the candidates. I'm sure you have some questions for them. Let me just touch on a couple of things real quick while I'm finishing my first term as county commissioner. When I first started, our budget was $94 million. Today, we're operating on a $78 million budget. Today, we have an Office of Management budget, which actually has a plan and financial forecasting for where the county is going and where it's been. We are in the process of doing a number of different things in the county. Central purchasing is one of the issues that we brought on board and handled. I think one of the main achievements that I'd like to just speak a second about is we changed the way the county does its personnel business. No longer do you work for the county, and if you're living and breathing the next year, you get an automatic raise. Now it's performance-based. And when you look at that, that's estimated to save the county $3 million in the first 5 years. So we are doing business different in the county. We need to. It's a different world. I have a lot of other ideas I'd like to share with you, and I'll be glad to after this if you won't like. But I don't want to take any more time from these qualified candidates. So thank you for inviting me.
All right, for the questions, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with Daryl, and we'll just work our way this way, and then on the second one, Jody, then Chuck, TC, and so on. First question is this. Butler County is currently $90 million in debt. What is your plan to make our county more fiscally responsible?
More fiscally responsible, I think that I'm very fiscally conservative. I think that we should have taken advantage of the prosperous times a few years ago, and maybe not spend as much money as the commissioners did. I understand there's always a need for improvement, but when you look at the total size of the budget, I just think being fiscally frugal is important. Yeah, now we're hurting because the economy's down. And I do think that the main way is not to increase taxes. I agree with that. But I also think that making this county one of the best places for businesses to come is the priority. We've got to do that. I think that's my answer.
The debt is what it is at this point, and we're going to have to deal with it. What do we do now is the question. Moving forward, I would suggest that we are very, very careful in considering new developments. When we look at developers that come in and say to us, can you help us out with infrastructure? Let's ensure that there's some return on investment for the people in this county, that we don't end up with debt, with optimistic predictions of what increased tax values are going to bring, because that is how we end up with some of the debt that we have now. You really need to ensure that you are not selling $1 widget or $5 widgets for $1, because sometimes you can develop your way right into a hole. That's something I would consider moving forward. As far as other measures to control spending and to control the budget, I would go talk to some of the offices in the county and look at ways that we can do things smarter, cheaper, better, business improvements basically, and look at it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Butler County has been such a fast-growing county, it was necessary to build a lot more infrastructure. We had to build a new jail. We had the revolving door system where the people would come in and be booked and they'd be right out the door again. We had too many criminals on the street. We had to have swift and sure punishment to fight crime. So we built the jail that will serve Butler County through 2050 and beyond. We had to build new courts. We had to have new courtships, judgeships, I'm sorry. So subsequently, we did have to build the courts, and so we did that in the government services building. We also had to build the new Board of Elections building because of all the problems they had, particularly in Florida with the hanging chads and what have you. It was necessary to change the system, and we needed a lot more room than what we had where it was located before. That we've done, and we added also the Ohio State Extension building there with it. And there's the emergency management building, we've done that as well. Everything is infrastructure on all that debt that we have that will pay off in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. With the what I had tried to get before was as a commissioner, we only handle part of the employees, and that's around 750. So after evaluation, that's the only area that we can handle directly. As far as the office holders, though, I had always wanted a priority for the mandates, and then their needs, and then their wants, so that we could prioritize the money better than what it had been. But we cannot change the debt, and contrary to what Mr. Combs said, I also said no new taxes, and I was sitting next to him. Thank you.
I think Tim and I must have been in different meetings, but that's okay. What we need, basically, is jobs and economic development. The county basically has limited economic development department. When developers come in and they have no one to talk to, that's a problem. So my emphasis, as always, is jobs, jobs, jobs. I have been very fortunate in the time I've been in Columbus. For the 4 terms I've been there, I've always won the Watchdog or the Treasury Award. That's given to very few legislators who are given this award by their peers because of their fiscal conservacy. Margie Condon, who's here, who has been a great representative for this area and does such a good job. She received a similar award in her first year. So it goes, and you got to know how to work as a team and work together as your delegation in Columbus does. It has to happen here in Butler County. these commissioners have to work together.
Next, we'll start with Jody. Jody, what is your position on the Butler County Airport? Should it be sold?
I don't think that's a good call. I would not, that my position would be no on that. I think that it's an asset that can be managed better, but in terms of selling it off, I have concerns about that.
Absolutely not. The airport has captured millions of dollars in grant money. There's been really great improvements there. The new terminal building, a lot of new hangars. There's a lot of corporate jets going in and out of there now. It's a great economic tool, and it's done remarkably well in the last number of years. And I think it's something that we should continue to capitalize on. And we're in the process of trying to get a direct route from Bypass 4 to that in the near future. But right now it's been dubbed off, but there is plans in the future to have a direct access from Bypass 4. It is definitely an asset.
Hello. Yeah, and on this, I also wanted to establish an economic development group. And no, I would not sell it. If you read the paper, that the Blue Ash Airport is going to be probably closed, and I think that we should have already started some marketing efforts to capture that, and that we need to preserve this because you couldn't build a similar airport within 200 miles here within the next 10 years, and so that just needs to be marketed.
The airport is a great access to Butler County asset. It all comes together. It gives us another link of transportation. Many years ago, the airport was going under, and there was a consortium between Hampton, Fairfield, and the county to save the airport, which we did. And we set up a board. That board could not function. They couldn't get together. They wouldn't work together. So with the help of, at that time, Commissioner Ed Shelton and myself, we brought the airport under the county. From that time, Ed and I would go to Detroit once a year, FAA, regional FAA office, and we never left there without a commitment for $1 million for improvements there. And we did that for many, many years. I don't know if that's happening today, but that needs to be brought back up. And we need to work with FAA to continue to improve that airport, which will help economic development and jobs in Butler County.
Certainly it's an asset to Butler County. I think anytime you have an airport right in your county, that's a great thing. But I would just right off the table say that we would consider selling it if there was somebody interested in buying it. I mean, it's a large upkeep, and I've never found that the government does anything quite as well as the private sector. So that's where I stand.
Thank you, Joe. Next, we'll start with Commissioner Berman. What is your position on the decision made at the county to give a select few employees raises when the county is experiencing debt and layoffs?
Repeat that question, George, I'm sorry.
What is your position on the decision made at the county to give a select few employees raises when the county is experiencing debt and layoffs?
We're not in favor of giving raises at all. Matter of fact, there's a freeze on hiring. There's a freeze on raises. Some of the union contracts that are already in place have to be honored. But other than that, we are not issuing raises. You can check any of our records, and that's not what we're about.
Yes, we're not doing that now in the last couple of years, but there was raises for select employees from 16,000 to almost 80,000 within just a few months. And so that was a practice that had swelled the payrolls and had contributed to the over budget which we had in those years, is somewhere around 2002 to 2006.
It's my belief that when it comes to raises in government, there's studies that show that today government workers are above the private sector. It has flip-flopped. That has to be addressed. You can no longer continue to pay out taxpayers' dollars in wages and not get the services you deserve. So I would be one that would be totally opposed to raises at this time when you see the private sector who are either maintaining or dropping salaries. We see this a lot. And we see a lot of jobs that are not there, that were there a few years ago. We have to bring those jobs back to Butler County.
I'm not familiar with any particular group of people that got raises. Obviously, Mr. Furman says there's a salary freeze, which makes sense under the circumstances. SB 5 would have probably helped take care of that. But certainly we have to be frugal. I think the wage freeze makes sense. And probably look at reducing the budget through attrition of employees who retire and that kind of thing, and see if we can reduce the number of employees that we're hiring.
Naturally, having worked in business consulting, it's important to align your compensation with positions and make sure that you have a good compensation structure, that you have good incentive structures from a business standpoint. What I certainly absolutely would not favor giving a select few people raises unless it was based on merit. I think we would all agree that in cases where there's a great degree of merit, someone is providing extraordinary value, you'd want to recognize those people or lose them to private sector jobs. That said, which in many cases private sector jobs do pay more than public sector jobs, if you look at some of the studies. With regard to the work culture at the county, I find it very interesting, just as a side note, that there's a $117,000 job as a county administrator that's currently unfilled and has been for months because there's something going on in the work culture there that no one wants that job, including people currently positioned to take it. So maybe it's hazard pay. I don't know.
We'll start with you on the next question. How do you feel the practice of allowing public officials to retire and then be rehired in their former job at or near their former salary? The practice known as retire or rehire.
It's been said that is a savings, and that's the reason that's done. But as I have seen it, in most instances when that has happened, the person that takes that job back is up to their old salary within a couple of years. I just personally don't believe in double dipping. That there ought to be you can take another job somewhere else if you're qualified, but to remain on the same job 2 days a little later just doesn't sit with me.
I had a bill, and there's another bill now in Columbus that would prohibit double dipping. And you hear a lot of conversation back and forth, well, it saves money, you get experienced people. I'm in opposition to retire, rehire. And I'll tell you why. Because it keeps a younger person from being hired in somewhere down the line. We need to open these jobs up for the younger families and the younger people. In this county, a county administrator was allowed to do the exact thing. It happened right here in Butler County, where the administrator, and they haven't really been able to replace that position, as was said earlier, but that person retired, came back in at a lower salary, but was double dipping. He got his retirement plus a pretty decent salary. In a short period of time, he was almost up to his old salary. At that point in time, he did resign, he left the county. But I would have never accepted that or let that happen.
Yeah, I agree. I think just the idea of it doesn't set well. And for the reasons that Mr. Rogers said, I think that most of the time you see that when they retire and they're rehired, it won't be long and they'll be back up to that same rate. And that just doesn't make any sense to me. So I'd be against it. And I would like to see maybe just a requirement that you be out of the position, 5 or 10 years or something like that. I understand that, if people want to be rehired at some point and they do have the experience. I wouldn't want to put a ban on it 100%, but I do think that there should be some time between the time you retire and the time you get rehired. At least 5 or 10 years, I would think.
I oppose the practice of double dipping. I think it's an amazing expense to government from local all the way up when people do that sort of thing, and I understand it did happen here in the county. And furthermore, that there were early payouts to get people to the level where they could do the retirement. Furthermore, I appreciate that Representative Combs sponsored that bill. However, still what we end up with is a situation where it's a formality, where it's easy to go get an expert opinion that yes, it does serve public interests for that person to come back. And it's kind of like going out and buying your own expert witness. It's still possible for it to be done. So when it comes down to it, the responsibility for that lies with the people doing the hiring, the people who are actually responsible for that decision. And the bottom line is it's not a decision I would be comfortable with, but it is one that is happening here in this county.
I think that's a situation where you never say never, but by the same token, you have to make sure that the dollars and cents make sense in and of itself. If you have someone that's extremely experienced and doing a great job, and you need to keep his expertise, but you can do it as a savings, I can see it's possible, but for the most part, unless you can really show that savings and it's worth to keep the experience, I would not be in favor unless you have the dollar marks to show it.
Corky, we'll start with you on the next question. We are all served by the same county government. Wouldn't it be logical to charge the same water and sewer rates in all county areas served by our water department?
We are fortunate in Butler County to have the availability of water and sewer. As mentioned earlier, one of the biggest employees in the county is Butler Brewing Company, which again, I was fortunate enough to be there to ribbon cutting. And it's an asset to us to have the water that we have. Now, the differences in water rates has to do with cost. And water and sewer is all customer driven. And those decisions are made by analysis and what the cost of the water is to produce and what it takes for the county to provide that water or that sewer. In many cases, the location has a lot to do with that.
Well, I won't pretend to understand exactly how the water rates are determined in Butler County, but I would say that the market usually works pretty well. Where I live, I'm on the Butler rural, Southwest Ohio water, and I don't have a problem with them So I don't understand exactly how the whole water thing works. I know that there was a big problem between the city of Hamilton and Butler County a few years ago. They worked that out after a long period of time. So it doesn't make sense to have one water rate. I would have to look at the whole infrastructure and that kind of thing, and who's providing what exactly. And so.
It's somewhat of an unfortunate fact that in rural counties where there are areas to be developed still, when you want to attract business, it's in somewhat of our public interest to slightly, as already developed areas, subsidize some of the rural areas. However, I would really stress the public-private partnership, developers making their own contribution to making sure that the water is made affordable in the new developing areas, making sure that the costs are kept, and it's to our benefit also to make sure that water is extended into those areas. However, I just don't want an unfair amount of the burden relying on people who are living on fixed incomes in already developed areas, and they're being forced to subsidize the cost of extending water into farther out into the rural portions of the county. It's a matter of balance, and it's a matter of making sure that those who have the incentive to develop that land are the ones who are actually paying a large portion of the cost of extending the water.
The contract with Hamilton happened a number of years ago. Obviously, it was before I came in. And that contract was rather lucrative for the city of Hamilton. But by the same token, if it hadn't been for that, there wouldn't have been all the development that we've experienced in Westchester. That was the only game in town at the time that happened. And we've worked with city council since, and we've gotten some more agreeable arrangements. But we are the second supplier. We have to get it from Hamilton, and subsequently we have our costs that we have to pass on. But we have tried to keep that as low as possible with cuts and attrition in the department, and I think right now that we have managed to have a pretty decent water rate.
I think that what's been said, also along with that, I know with new homes and the developers of each new subdivision, a lot of times their tap fees pay for a lot of the cost of those. But that's true about if you want the same rates for everybody, that means that the people which are closer in would have to subsidize those people in the outlying areas. So that's a question which we're not ready to address or even agree on. But just like they brought about the contract with the city of Hamilton, I don't know when that contract is up, but I would think that they would need to make more favorable terms that based upon their incomes, which they're receiving now.
Given the sheriff's budget is a large part of the county's funds, what is your stand on his immigration policy? And we'll start with Bill Cunningham on this one. Darrell, we'll start with you.
Immigration policy, in an ideal world, I think people should be able to come and go as they please. This is supposed to be a free country. Unfortunately, we have a government that's involved that has created a large welfare state, and so, that's an issue. I spent time as a Peace Corps volunteer in South America, and I love the Hispanic culture. I know that's not the only culture that's in Butler County, but that seems to be the one that's focused on through the sheriff's office. I think that if it's illegal to come into this country, people should be held accountable. Obviously, we can't deport 12 million people. Realistically, I would think that we would have to come to some kind of I can't think of the term, but it's basically if they've been here 5 or 10 years and they're productive citizens, you might as well help them become citizens. My only concern is, I have to say, my only concern is that there is a faction out there that doesn't necessarily want to become Americans. They want to be here to work and send money back home.
I'm going to try so hard not to go over on this one. I met Sheriff Jones earlier this evening for the first time, and he's charming and enjoyable, and I really, really appreciate his stance on this. I really do. No, you're fun. That was fun. And he's nearly world famous, as I pointed out. And as a commissioner, though, my main concern is just its impact on the bottom line, because that's what commissioners do, is take a look at the math. And the bottom line, in one case, is that we had to pay a $100,000 settlement because we did round somebody up. And we managed to create a couple of really good jobs in Mexico doing that, by the way, because the guy bought a truck and he started a small business, so that's awesome. So he's definitely entrepreneurial of spirit. As far as my own personal take on it, I just really want to make sure that we do a good job as commissioners for the county. I think Sheriff Jones is doing a good job. And I appreciate your time because I have to stop now.
I'm in favor of the stance that the sheriff takes. I think the key word here is illegal, and I think that's the problem. I pushed hard for the money to do the training for his officers so they had the skills to work with the ICE department, so that they would know how to work with the ICE. And really the whole blame here lies with Washington and federals, because we can only enforce what we're allowed to enforce. We have to live by the laws and the rules and regulations. But at least our officers here, thanks to the sheriff and the department, they do have the training to now work with the ICE to know what the boundaries are and how they can proceed.
Yes, I believe the law is law, and that presently the federal government is impeding him. We do know there's somebody up there. If we can't get an earmark, maybe we can get a favor. But you know, I don't know whether the prosecutor has a way, but there's an awful lot of money which goes out through Western Union at the Kroger stores, and so if that just the names could be somehow published legally, that when they do expend our tax dollars at the hospitals or at some of the government services, we can maybe get that back.
I really don't know how charming Rick Jones is. I have traveled with him. We both have been to the border in Arizona. Trips that we took on our own because we wanted to see what the problem was. Cochise, Arizona, the county, 1,000 a day across the border. The Sheriff of Cochise County, Sheriff Diver, and Sheriff Rick Jones have tracked drugs from Cochise County crossing the border into Butler County. It's a serious, serious matter that our federal government is not doing anything about. The Chinese cartel in heroin now is shipping heroin into Mexico because it's so porous and so easy to get in this country. Last week, I had a meeting because I'm chairman of the Public Safety Committee, and George said, stop, but I want to tell you the story real quick, if I can, if you'll allow me to. We met with the Highway Patrol, and they've been catching large amounts of all kinds of drugs, heroin, cocaine, methamphetamines, crack, you name it. I asked Colonel Ward, who's head of the Highway Patrol, what percentage of the drugs you were catching? His answer was 3%.
Wow.
Now, let me tell you something else real quick. The shipment into Ohio comes in vans or motorhomes. There are 3 vehicles that accompany those vans and motorhomes. You have a decoy vehicle, and you now, at one time, or just recently, it's been raised, there are 2 gun cars. There used to be 1, now there's 2. There's reasons for those gun cars. They want to protect those drugs from other drug dealers, and of course, law enforcement. They want to stop law enforcement. And when a highway patrolman, a sheriff's deputy, a police officer pulls in behind with the van or the vehicle that is bringing the dope into Ohio, that decoy car will come in between them and do something illegal to get the officer pull that car over. And then the van gets on out of the way and they go on their way. Or, if it comes down to it, they start shooting. Now, I don't know about you, but that has to stop. I travel 71 every week.
Thank you, Corey. Okay. Next, Jody, we're going to start with you. We only have time for 1 or 2 more questions. With the county in tough financial times, how can we afford to fund the new Steiner Shopping Center in Liberty?
That is a very, very good question. Very, very good. Apparently it's coming from tax increment financing. If you all take a look at the county budget as I have, you'll see that there are a lot of pilots, payments in lieu of taxes, that are coming from tax increment financing in residential incentive districts. Apparently we're going to be contributing some amount of money from an already existing tax increment financing situation, and that is as it may be. There are projected jobs, supposedly, and that's great. I hope we don't cannibalize Bridgewater Falls. I hope we're not robbing Peter to pay Paul. I hope this is a net plus. Some of the details, I suppose, will emerge because it's apparently on track to happen, as are the improvements around the 129 area. There, 129 is Sunday Road. We'll see. As far as, at least I hope that's the development of which you were speaking, and I'm going to swing back to the immigration issue very briefly, which is we really need to address why people are coming here, aside from just drug trafficking. They come here for jobs. I hired someone